Green Day, Wake Me Up When September Ends.
Green Day lead singer Billy Joe Armstrong wrote this song about his father, who died of cancer on September 1, 1982. At his father's funeral, Billy cried, ran home and locked himself in his room. When his mother got home and knocked on the door to Billy's room, Billy simply said, "Wake me up when September ends," hence the title.
Blink-182's Adam's Song.
Bassist and singer Mark Hoppus wrote this song about the loneliness he felt from being on the road for so long. The line, "I traced the cord back to the wall, no wonder it was never plugged in at all," refers to a time when Mark was at rehearsal and started to play but no sound came from his amp. He found out that he and his amps were in a puddle, and if he was plugged in, he would have been electrocuted. While the song sounds very depressing and somewhat morbid, it was actually written as an anti-suicide song. In the final chorus, the lyrics are changed to have a brighter spin on them.
Rage Against the Machine, Killing in the Name.
This song is a criticism about police brutality and racism against the Afro-American community. It was written a short time after the 1992 Los Angeles riots that started because of an event where 4 white police officers arrested the 26-year-old Afro-American Rodney King for driving in a high-speed car, and got captured on camera while brutally beating him even though he was no threat and showed no resistance to the arrest. The police officers got acquitted, and right after the riots began and lasted for 6 days. 53 people died and more than 2,000 got injured. The song is making a comparison between many police officers and the Ku Klux Klan activist, saying that those who work for the forces are the same that burn crosses. Ku Klux Klan are known for burning large crosses near Afro-American communities.
Third Eye Blind, Semi-Charmed Life, catchy song about meth.
The sky was gold, it was rose. I was taking sips of it through my nose. And I wish I could get back there, someplace back there. Smiling in the pictures you would take. Doing crystal meth, will lift you up until you break. It won't stop, I won't come down. I keep stock with the tick-tock rhythm, I bump for the drop. And then I bumped up, I took the hit that I was given. Then I bumped again, then I bumped again. I said.
Shine on You Crazy Diamond, by Pink Floyd was dedicated to Syd Barrett, who gradually lost his mind to drugs and was kicked out of the band.
This is a tribute to Syd Barrett, an original member of Pink Floyd. Notice the title, Shine on You Crazy Diamond. He was their lead guitarist and wrote most of their early hits, but he gradually went nuts and was kicked out of the band in 1968, 3 years after the group started. Drugs played a big role in his mental illness. During the final mixing sessions of this song in June of 1975, Barrett wandered into the studios, ready to help out. He was fat, bald, and as crazy as they remembered, but they let him stay for a while. Barrett wanted to rejoin the group, but they learned in 1967 and 1968 that having an insane member was not good for a band. Before he was kicked out, Barrett would get on stage and either refuse to play or play the same note over and over.
Arctic Monkeys, When the Sun Goes Down.
The song is about prostitution in the band hometown, Sheffield. The girl is the prostitute, and the scumbag is the pimp. The changing when the sun goes down line is about how normal the town looks in the day, while in the night the streets are filling with prostitute, drug dealers, etc. The line "and he told Roxanne to put on her red light" is a reference to the line "Roxanne, you don't have to put on the red light" from the song Roxanne by the Police, one of the most famous songs about prostitution. The red light is what prostitutes use in many areas. Amsterdam is the most famous one, NSFW, to show to potential clients that their business is open.
The Beatles, Hey Jude.
Inspiration and writing. In 1968, John Lennon and his wife Cynthia Lennon separated due to John's affair with Yoko Ono. Soon afterwards, Paul McCartney drove out to visit Cynthia and Lennon's son, Julian. We'd been very good friends for millions of years, and I thought it was a bit much for them suddenly to be persona non grata and out of my life, McCartney said. Cynthia Lennon recalled. I was truly surprised when, one afternoon, Paul arrived on his own. I was touched by his obvious concern for our welfare. On the journey down he composed Hey Jude in the car. I will never forget Paul's gesture of care and concern in coming to see us. The song's original title was Hey Jules, and it was intended to comfort Julian Lennon from the stress of his parents' divorce. McCartney said, "I started with the idea Hey Jules, which was Julian, don't make it bad, take a sad song and make it better. Hey, try and deal with this terrible thing." I knew it was not going to be easy for him. I always feel sorry for kids in divorces. I had the idea for the song by the time I got there. I changed it to Jude because I thought that sounded a bit better. Julian Lennon discovered the song had been written for him almost 20 years later. He remembered being closer to McCartney than to his father. "Paul and I used to hang about quite a bit, more than Dad and I did. We had a great friendship going, and there seems to be far more pictures of me and Paul playing together at that age than there are pictures of me and my dad." Although McCartney originally wrote the song for Julian Lennon, John Lennon thought it had actually been written for him. "But I always heard it as a song to me. If you think about it, Yoko's just came into the picture. He's saying, 'Hey, Jude, hey, John.' I know I'm sounding like one of those fans who reads things into it, but you can hear it as a song to me. Subconsciously, he was saying, 'Go ahead, leave me.' On a conscious level, he didn't want me to go ahead." Other people believed McCartney wrote the song about them, including Judith Simons, a journalist with the Daily Express. Still others, including John Lennon, have speculated that McCartney's failing long-term relationship with Jane Asher when he wrote Hey Jude was an unconscious message to himself. In fact, when Lennon mentioned that he thought the song was about him, McCartney denied it, and told Lennon he had written the song about himself. Writer Mark Hertsgaard noted many of the song's lyrics do seem directed more at a grown man on the verge of a powerful new love, especially the lines "You have found her, now go and get her, and you are waiting for someone to perform with." Tim Riley wrote, "If the song is about self-worth and self-consolation in the face of hardship, the vocal performance itself conveys much of the journey. He begins by singing to comfort someone else, finds himself weighing his own feelings in the process, and finally, in the repeated refrains that nurture his own approbation, he comes to believe in himself." McCartney changed the title to Hey Jude because the name Jude was easier to sing. Much as he did with Yesterday, McCartney played the song for other musicians and friends. Ron Griffith of Badfinger, known at this time as the Ivies, and the first band to join the Beatles' own record label Apple Records, recalled that on their first day in the studio, Paul walked over to the grand piano and said, "Hey lads, have a listen," and he sat down and gave us a full concert rendition of Hey Jude. We were gobsmacked. When McCartney introduced Lennon to his new composition, he came to the movement "You Need Is on Your Shoulder" and told Lennon, "I'll fix that bit." Lennon asked why, and McCartney answered, "It's a stupid expression, it sounds like a parrot." Lennon parried with "You won't, you know. That's the best line in the song." McCartney thus left the line in and later said, "When I play that song, that's the line when I think of John, and sometimes I get a little emotional during that moment." A failed early promotional attempt for the single was later recalled by the Beatles' personal assistant Alistair Taylor. On the 7th of August 1968, McCartney took his new girlfriend, Francie Schwartz, and Taylor to the Apple Boutique, closed only a week before, in order to paint the upcoming single's title Hey Jude/Revolution on its large street-side shop window. Within a day, the handmade piece of promotion was mistaken for an anti-Semitic graffito, since Jude, besides being an English first name, happens to mean Jew in German, and the window was smashed by passers-by. McCartney himself related the incident like this in 1996. "I went into the Apple shop just before Hey Jude was being released. The windows were whited out, and I thought, great opportunity. Baker Street, millions of buses going around, so Before anyone knew what it meant, I scraped Hey Jude out of the whitewash. A guy who had a delicatessen in Marylebone rang me up, and he was furious. I'm going to send one of my sons round to beat you up. I said, hang on, what's this about? And he said, you've written Jude in the shop window. I had no idea it meant Jew, but if you look at footage of Nazi Germany, Judenraus was written in whitewashed windows with a Star of David. I swear it never occurred to me. I said, I'm really sorry, and on. Some of my best friends are Jewish, really. It's just a song we've got coming out. If you listen to the song you'll see it's nothing to do with any of that, it's a complete coincidence. He was just about pacified in the end.
The Beatles, A Day in the Life.
Background. Credited to Lennon McCartney, the song comprises distinct sections written independently by John Lennon and Paul McCartney, with orchestral additions. According to Lennon, the inspiration for the first two verses was the death of Tara Brown, the 21-year-old heir to the Guinness fortune who had crashed his Lotus Elan on the 18th of December 1966 in Redcliffe Gardens, Earl's Court. Brown had been a friend of Lennon and McCartney. Lennon's verses were adapted from a story in the 17th of January 1967 edition of the Daily Mail, which reported the coroner's verdict into Brown's death.
I didn't copy the accident, Lennon said.
Tara didn't blow his mind out, but it was in my mind when I was writing that verse. The details of the accident in the song, not noticing traffic lights and a crowd forming at the scene, were similarly part of the fiction. The second verse contains the line "The English army had just won the war." Lennon was making reference to his role in the movie How I Won the War, released on the 18th of October 1967. In Many Years From Now, McCartney said about the line "I'd love to turn you on," which concludes both verse sections, "This was the time of Tim Leary's turn on, tune in, drop out," and we wrote, "I'd love to turn you on." John and I gave each other a knowing look. It's a drug song.
You know that, don't you?
McCartney provided the middle section of the song, a short piano piece he had been working on independently, with lyrics about a commuter whose uneventful morning routine leads him to drift off into a dream. McCartney had written the piece as a wistful recollection of his younger years, which included riding the bus to school, smoking, and going to class.
This theme matched with the original concept of the album, which was going to be about their youth.
In fact, Penny Lane, a street in Liverpool, and Strawberry Fields Forever, an orphanage behind Lennon's house, were songs first written for the album but were released as an A and B-side single as the Beatles were due for 45 RPM release. The orchestral crescendos that linked the verses and this section were conducted by McCartney and producer George Martin. The final verse was inspired by a far and near news brief in the 17th of January edition of the Daily Mail. Under the headline "The Holes in Our Roads," the first of the two paragraphs read, "There are 4,000 holes in the road in Blackburn, Lancashire, or 1/26th of a hole per person, according to a council survey." The story had been sold to the Daily Mail in Manchester by Ron Kennedy of the Star News Agency in Blackburn. Ron had noticed a Lancashire Evening Telegraph story about road excavations and in a telephone call to the Borough Engineers Department had checked the now famous annual number of holes in the road. Lennon had a problem with the words of the final verse, however, not being able to think of how to connect "Now they know how many holes it takes to end the Albert Hall." His friend Terry Doran, managing director of Apple, suggested that they would fill the Albert Hall. John Lennon on composing the song with McCartney. "Paul and I were definitely working together, especially on A Day in the Life that was the way we wrote a lot of the time. You'd write the good bit, the part that was easy, like I read the news today or whatever it was, then when you got stuck or whenever it got hard, instead of carrying on, you just drop it, then we would meet each other, and I would sing half, and he would be inspired to write the next bit and vice versa."
He was a bit shy about it because I think he thought it's already a good song.
"Sometimes we wouldn't let each other interfere with a song either, because you tend to be a bit lax with someone else's stuff, you experiment a bit.
So we were doing it in his room with the piano. He said, should we do this? Yeah, let's do that." Composition.
The Beatles began recording the song, with a working title in the life of, on the 19th of January 1967, in the innovative and creative studio atmosphere ushered in by the recording of Strawberry Fields Forever and Penny Lane over the preceding weeks. The two sections of the song are separated by a 23-bar bridge.
At first, the Beatles were not sure how to fill this transition.
Thus, at the conclusion of the recording session for the basic tracks, this section solely consisted of a simple repeated piano chord and the voice of assistant Mal Evans counting the bars. Evans' guide vocal was treated with gradually increasing amounts of echo.
The 23-bar bridge section ended with a sound an alarm clock triggered by Evans.
The original intent was to edit out the ringing alarm clock when the missing section was filled in, however it complemented McCartney's piece well. The first line of McCartney's song began "woke up, fell out of bed," so the decision was made to keep the sound. Martin later said that editing it out would have been unfeasible in any case. The basic track for the song was refined with remixing and additional parts added at recording sessions on the 20th of January and the 3rd of February. Still, there was no solution for the missing 24-bar middle section of the song, when McCartney had the idea of bringing in a full orchestra to fill the gap. To allay concerns that classically trained musicians would not be able to improvise the section, producer George Martin wrote a loose score for the section. It was an extended, atonal crescendo that encouraged the musicians to improvise within the defined framework, orchestra. The orchestral part was recorded on the 10th of February 1967, with McCartney and Martin conducting a 40-piece orchestra.
The recording session was completed at a total cost of £367, £5,640 as of 2014-19, for the players, an extravagance at the time.
Martin later described explaining his improvised score to the puzzled orchestra.
"What I did there was to write the lowest possible note for each of the instruments in the orchestra.
At the end of the 24 bars, I wrote the highest note, near a chord of E major. Then I put a squiggly line right through the 24 bars, with reference points to tell them roughly what note they should have reached during each bar. Of course, they all looked at me as though I were completely mad."
McCartney noted that the strings were able to keep themselves in the designated time, while the trumpets were much wilder.
McCartney had originally wanted a 90-piece orchestra, but this proved impossible. The difference was made up, as the semi-improvised segment was recorded multiple times and eventually 4 different recordings were overdubbed into a single massive crescendo. The results were successful. In the final edit of the song, the orchestral bridge is reprised after the final verse. It was arranged for the orchestral session to be filmed by NEMS Enterprises for use in a planned television special. The film was never released in its entirety, although portions of it can be seen in the A Day in the Life promotional film, which includes shots of studio guests Mick Jagger, Marianne Faithfull, Keith Richards, Brian Jones, Donovan, Pattie Boyd, and Michael Nesmith. Reflecting the Beatles' taste for experimentation and the avant-garde at this point in their careers, the orchestra players were asked to wear or were given a costume piece on top of their formal dress. This resulted in different players wearing anything from fake noses to fake stick-on nipples. Martin recalled that the lead violinist performed wearing a gorilla paw, while a bassoon player placed a balloon on the end of his instrument. Due to the multiple takes required to perfect the orchestral cacophony and the final chord, as well as their considerable procrastination in composing the song, the total duration of time spent recording A Day in the Life was 34 hours. In contrast, the Beatles' earliest work, their first album Please Please Me, had been recorded in its entirety in only 10 hours, 45 minutes.
Final chord.
Following the final orchestral crescendo, the song ends with one of the most famous final chords in music history. Lennon, McCartney, Starr, and Evans shared 3 different pianos, with Martin on the harmonium, and all played an E major chord simultaneously. The final chord was made to ring out for over 40 seconds by increasing the recording sound level as the vibration faded out. Towards the end of the chord, the recording level was so high that listeners can hear the sounds of the studio, including rustling papers and a squeaking chair. The piano chord was a replacement for a failed vocal experiment. On the evening following the orchestra recording session, the 4 Beatles had recorded an ending of their voices humming the chord, but after multiple overdubs they wanted something with more impact. This final E chord represents a VI to the song's tonic G major, although Pedler argues that the preceding chord changes, from F, them all, to E, now they know, M7, takes to fill, C, love to turn you, and B, on, followed by the chromatic ascent, shift our sense of the tonic from G to E, creating a different feeling to the usual emotional uplift associated with a VI modulation. The supposed drug reference in the line "I'd love to turn you on" resulted in the song initially being banned from broadcast by the BBC.
The River of Dreams by Billy Joel is a song he actually tried to forget.
Billy Joel gets a lot of song ideas in his dreams, and often struggles to remember them when he wakes up. For this song, however, he woke up with the song in his head, but tried not to write it. He explained on the Howard Stern show in 2010, "I thought, who the hell am I to try to pull off this gospel song? So I took a shower to wash this song away. I sang it in the shower and knew I had to do it." In Joel's dream, he was walking in his sleep, which inspired that lyric. My thoughts. I think it's quite amazing that a beautiful song like this one was almost forgotten, because Joel thought he couldn't pull it off. Interesting story behind this one.
The Beatles' Norwegian Wood, not actually about furniture.
It was one of those smack your forehead realizations. I'd been listening to the Beatles since I was little. My mom had a rock band that did covers, and the Beatles were a mainstay of their repertoire. At some point in our lives, we lose that veil of childhood innocence. In this case, I thought Norwegian Wood was a song about a hard-working furniture salesman that had trouble finding love while on the road. He admires this lady's furniture choice, but when he wakes up to find she's ducked out on him, he smashes it and lights a fire with it, perhaps rethinking his choice of career. Nope. It's about a girl who doesn't want to sleep with him, leaves him high and dry, and he takes matters into his own hands. I was in my 20s when I realized this and I called my mom. It went something like this. "Mom. You know that Beatles song, Norwegian Wood?" "Yes, darling." "It's not actually about furniture." Uproarious laughter. And it's not like I was a sheltered child or anything. My brain was just super slow to figure this one out for some reason.